The empire of Persia stretched farther than any before it, from the deserts of Arabia to the mountains of Media, from the great rivers of Babylon to the sea itself. Its banners fluttered above golden palaces, and its cities glimmered like jewels in the light of dawn. But even in this kingdom of splendor, a silent shadow moved beneath the marble halls, for where pride rules, jealousy is never far behind. In this vast realm sat the mighty King Darius, ruler of nations and master of armies. His throne hall was lined with tall marble columns carved with lions and winged bulls, symbols of power that seemed eternal. Every command from his lips became law, sealed with the mark of Persia's might. Yet among princes and generals stood one man unlike the rest, Daniel, servant of the Most High God. He was no longer the young exile brought in chains from Jerusalem, but a man of silver hair and steady faith, whose wisdom had guided kings who rose and fell. Now he served under a new crown, and still the light of heaven seemed to rest upon him. Darius recognized it. Where others ruled through ambition, Daniel ruled through truth. Where others sought wealth, Daniel sought righteousness. The king appointed him as one of 3 governors to oversee the empire's affairs, and soon Daniel's counsel shone brighter than them all. His words carried weight in the court. His decisions brought peace where others stirred rivalry. But light always exposes darkness, and in the hearts of the proud, envy began to burn. "How is it," the nobles whispered, "that an exile from Judah holds such honor above us?" They searched his records for faults. None. His hands were clean, his heart steadfast, his loyalty beyond question. "If we cannot accuse him by law," one hissed, "then we will accuse him by faith." And so, beneath the gold-roofed palaces of Persia, a quiet conspiracy took root, a plan to break the man who would not bow to any god but his own. While music echoed through banquet halls, Daniel spent his nights in prayer. By the window of his chamber overlooking the sleeping city, he knelt facing Jerusalem, the home he had not seen since youth, and lifted his voice in gratitude. The same stars that watched over kings also watched over him. And though he lived among rulers, he bowed only before one. He was a servant of heaven in a kingdom of pride. And soon, that faith, steadfast through decades, would be tested by lions and by law. The palace of Darius gleamed with light by day, but at night its beauty hid whispers darker than the desert's shadow. In secret chambers, among tapestries and golden lamps, men gathered, proud officials with smiles that concealed venom. Their envy of Daniel had turned to fury. Each day, the king praised his wisdom, sought his counsel, and trusted his word above all others. And each time Daniel bowed in gratitude to God rather than to them, their hatred grew. "He rises higher with every sunrise," one muttered. "If this continues, he will command even the king's ear," another replied with a bitter laugh. "Then we must silence that voice, not with the sword, but with his own faith." They searched for weakness. No bribe had ever swayed him, no rumor of scandal, no careless word, no secret crime could be found. Daniel's record was pure, a life built on obedience, not ambition, but in their malice, they saw purity as a weapon. One of them leaned forward, eyes glinting in the torchlight. His faith is his strength. Let it become his snare. And so they devised a trap, not of steel or chains, but of law. They would use the king's pride to destroy the servant of God. Days later, the court assembled in the Hall of Lions, the great council chamber where royal decrees were written and sealed. The nobles approached Darius with honeyed words and false reverence. "O King Darius, live forever," they said, bowing low. "The empire flourishes under your wisdom, and all nations honor your rule. Therefore let a decree be issued for 30 days. No one shall pray to any god or man except to you, O king. Let all who disobey be cast into the den of lions." The king, pleased by their praise, smiled faintly. He saw it as a gesture of unity, a sign of loyalty from his subjects. Without hesitation, he took the royal seal from his hand and pressed it into the wax of the decree. The law of the Medes and Persians was unchangeable. Once written, not even the king himself could revoke it. The nobles bowed again. Hiding their satisfaction behind false smiles, they had achieved what they desired. Daniel's faith would now stand against the law of the empire. As the parchment dried and the decree was read aloud through the streets of Babylon, the words echoed like thunder through every house and market. Let no man pray to any god or man but to King Darius for 30 days. The people obeyed out of fear and custom. But in one quiet chamber, high above the city's roofs, an old man heard the decree and simply bowed his head. He whispered softly to himself, "The law of men may change. The law of my God does not." And as the sun set that evening, Daniel prepared to pray. The morning sun rose over Babylon, casting long shadows across its golden streets. Trumpets sounded from the palace walls as messengers rode out, scrolls in hand declaring the new royal decree. Citizens stopped in the markets. Soldiers straightened their armor. Priests lowered their eyes, for none dared question the command of the king. "Let it be known throughout the empire," the herald shouted. "For 30 days, no one shall pray to any god or man except to King Darius himself. Whoever disobeys shall be cast into the den of lions." The words rolled through the city like thunder. Merchants murmured. Mothers clutched their children. In every home, prayers fell silent, all except one. Far above the noise of the streets, in a quiet chamber facing the distant hills of Judah, Daniel unrolled his prayer mat. He had heard the decree. He understood the danger. But fear had never ruled his heart, and no law of man could command his soul. The room was still. Golden light poured through the lattice window as he knelt, old hands resting gently on the stone floor. His voice, steady and soft, rose like incense to heaven. He prayed not in rebellion but in peace, as he had done every day of his life, 3 times a day, morning, noon, and night, thanking the God who had never failed him. Below, in the alleys and courtyards, jealous eyes watched. The same men who had flattered the king now hid in the shadows, waiting for their moment. Through the window, they saw Daniel kneeling, lips moving in prayer, eyes lifted toward Jerusalem. They exchanged grim smiles. The trap had closed. That evening, as the last light faded from the palace towers, they rushed to the royal court. Their robes swirled across the marble floor as they cried out, "O King Darius, live forever." "Did you not sign a decree that for 30 days no one may pray to any god or man except to you?" The king, unaware of their deceit, nodded. "The law stands. It cannot be changed." Then their voices rose together, trembling with false righteousness. "Then know this. O king, Daniel, one of the exiles from Judah, pays no attention to your decree. Even now he prays 3 times a day to his God." Darius froze. For a moment, the throne room fell silent. No sound but the flicker of torches against the gilded walls. The king's heart sank as the truth dawned on him. He realized he had been deceived. The law he had sealed with pride had become a weapon against the man he most respected. All through the evening, Darius wrestled with guilt and despair. He called for his advisors, searching for a way to free Daniel. But every voice replied with the same cold words. "O king, remember, the law of the Medes and Persians cannot be repealed." And as the night deepened, Daniel prayed once more, not for deliverance, but for strength to stand faithful until the end. Night settled over Babylon like a veil of gold and fire. The torches along the palace walls flickered in the wind, and the murmur of distant music echoed from the banquet halls. But high above the noise of the city, in the quiet of his chamber, Daniel knelt once more, his window open toward Jerusalem, his heart fixed on heaven. The decree had been signed. The penalty was death. Yet Daniel's soul remained steady, anchored in faith that had weathered exile, kingdoms, and years of trial. He prayed not with fear, but with peace, words flowing softly in the dim candlelight. "Lord of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, you have never failed me. Your will be my refuge." Below, the sound of armored feet broke the silence. From the narrow streets came the echo of voices, sharp, urgent, growing closer. The conspirators had gathered the guards. They marched through the corridors with scrolls in hand, their faces lit by the cruel satisfaction of triumph. They climbed the stairs to Daniel's dwelling and burst through the door. The old man did not rise in panic. He did not hide, nor did he protest. He simply looked up, calm, unshaken, eyes bright with faith. "You defy the king's command," one of the officials sneered. Daniel's reply was gentle, steady. "I serve the King of Kings, whose law no man can change." They bound him with cords of royal decree, more symbolic than cruel, for even they felt the weight of what they were doing. One guard, young and uncertain, hesitated as he looked at the old prophet. But the others pressed forward, dragging Daniel through the torchlit corridors toward the throne. Word reached the palace quickly. King Darius, still restless from guilt, rose as the guards entered. When he saw Daniel bound, his face fell in sorrow. "Is it true?" he whispered. "Did you pray to your God despite the decree?" Daniel bowed his head slightly, not in shame, but reverence. "I did, O king, for I could not forsake the one who has always delivered me." The king's hands trembled as he turned away. He had admired Daniel's faith, and now that same faith condemned him. He tried again to find a loophole, a law, a clause that might save his friend. But the scrolls were clear, the decree was sealed, the sentence irreversible. The nobles watched with smug victory, but behind Darius's silence a decision formed. If the law demanded punishment, then he would entrust Daniel to the only power higher than his throne. As the moon rose over Babylon, Daniel was led through the palace gates toward the place of judgment, the pit of lions. The wind carried the sound of distant growls, and the air grew heavy with fear. But Daniel walked with calm steps, his lips moving in prayer, for he knew that the hand which closed the mouths of beasts was stronger than the hands of kings. The night was heavy with silence as Daniel was brought to the hall of judgment. The marble floors gleamed under the torchlight, and the carved lions along the walls seemed to watch with solemn eyes. 100 nobles stood in attendance, their robes whispering like snakes as they shifted in triumph. At the center, King Darius sat upon his throne, his face pale with grief. He had not eaten nor slept. He had sent his scribes through every law and decree, searching for escape. But the seal of the Medes and Persians was final. The same authority that had made him powerful now bound him in chains of regret. "Bring him forward," the king said softly. Daniel stepped into the light. His hands were still bound, but his eyes held no fear, only peace, as if the chamber were a place of worship rather than judgment. The king rose from his throne, voice trembling. "Daniel, servant of the living God, your wisdom has guided me more than my own counsel. Must it come to this?" Daniel bowed slightly, his tone gentle and resolute. "O king, I have served you faithfully, but my first service belongs to the Lord. Whatever happens now is in his hands." The room fell silent. Even the guards seemed to hesitate. One of the nobles broke the stillness with sharp authority. "O king, the law must be fulfilled. You yourself sealed it. The judgment cannot be delayed." The king's eyes filled with sorrow, but he gave a single nod. "Then may your God, whom you serve continually, deliver you from this decree." Guards stepped forward. They led Daniel through the outer gates, past the gardens and the stone arches where fountains whispered under the moonlight. The path descended to the edge of the palace grounds, where a massive stone enclosure stood, the lion's den. The air trembled with low, guttural growls from within. Torches flickered, their light glinting off the iron bars and rough-hewn rock. The guards shifted uneasily. Even the most hardened soldiers feared this place. Daniel stood at the edge of the pit. He looked down, darkness below, eyes gleaming faintly in the torchlight, the sound of claws against stone. But he did not tremble. He whispered softly, "The Lord is my refuge and my fortress, my God, in whom I trust." King Darius stepped forward, his voice breaking. "Your God will save you, Daniel. He must." The guards released the chains. Daniel descended slowly into the pit, the sound of lions echoing through the night. When he reached the ground, he looked up, his figure small against the massive stone walls, but his spirit towering above them all. The great stone slab was rolled over the entrance, sealed with the king's own ring and the rings of his nobles. The deed was done. As the last torch was extinguished, the king turned away, his heart crushed under the weight of his own command. He returned to his chambers, refusing food, music, or comfort. The sound of celebration filled the city. But within the palace, there was only silence, and in the darkness of the den, Daniel prayed, calm, unwavering, while the growls faded into peace. Darkness swallowed the pit. The air was thick and dry, heavy with the scent of stone and dust. From the shadows came the low rumble of beasts, lions pacing in slow, restless circles, their eyes glinting like molten gold. The sound of claws scraping the ground echoed through the cavern, rising and falling like thunder beneath the earth. Daniel stood still. The last echo of the rolling stone above faded, leaving only the steady rhythm of his heartbeat and the growl of the hungry pride. He closed his eyes and whispered, "My God, you are with me, even here." A lion stepped forward, muscles rippling beneath its tawny mane. It paused before him, the heat of its breath brushing his robe. Another growl followed, deep, guttural, powerful enough to shake the walls. Then, the impossible happened. A light, faint at first, began to glow from above. It spread through the pit like dawn breaking over the desert. And from that light stepped a radiant figure, clothed in brilliance not of this world. His face shone like fire reflected on water, and his presence silenced the very beasts. The lions stopped moving. Their growls faded into quiet, rumbling purrs, and one by one, they lay down around Daniel, heads bowed, eyes calm, as if tamed by an unseen hand. Daniel fell to his knees, tears in his eyes, overwhelmed by awe. The angel of the Lord stood beside him, his voice like a whisper carried on the wind. "Fear not, Daniel. The Lord has heard your prayer. His power shuts the mouths of lions." Peace filled the den. The air that once carried fear now shimmered with divine light. Daniel sat upon the stone floor, resting his back against one of the great beasts as it breathed quietly beside him. He lifted his hands in silent worship. Above the sealed entrance, the city slept, unaware that within the darkness below, a miracle unfolded. While kings ruled and laws bound men in fear, the King of Heaven moved freely, defying every earthly decree. Through the long night, the lions lay still, their eyes reflecting the soft glow of heaven, and Daniel, surrounded by the very symbols of death, found himself in perfect peace. The city of Babylon glittered under the moon, its towers reaching high like pillars of silver light. But in the royal palace, there was no music, no laughter, no sleep. King Darius sat alone, his crown lying forgotten beside him. Before him, the royal table was untouched, no food, no wine, for grief had stolen his appetite. He paced the marble floor, each step echoing against the empty walls. The words of the decree he had sealed played again and again in his mind like a curse he could not silence. He had condemned the one man whose loyalty had never wavered. Outside his chamber, the city was still, but in the depths of the earth, another kind of silence reigned, one wrapped in light and peace. Inside the lion's den, Daniel knelt quietly, the angel of the Lord beside him. The great beasts lay around him in a circle, their breathing soft, their fierce eyes dim with calm. The same mouths that once devoured kings' enemies were now guardians of God's servant. Daniel spoke softly in the stillness, his voice echoing gently off the stone. "Your mercy, O Lord, endures forever. You are my strength in the shadow of death." Above, Darius looked out from the balcony. The torches of the city flickered far below, their flames like restless hearts in the dark. He lifted his eyes toward the heavens and whispered a prayer, not to his gods, but to the God of Daniel, God of the exile, the one Daniel serves. "If you are truly living, deliver him, and I will honor you before all nations." He waited, Hours passed. The moon crossed the sky, and still he did not rest. Every sound, a gust of wind, a cry of an owl, made him tremble, fearing the worst. His robes lay discarded, his head in his hands. No music could comfort him. No voice could bring peace. Meanwhile, below the palace, a different kind of stillness lingered. The den glowed faintly with holy light. Daniel, surrounded by the very beasts meant for his destruction, had fallen into gentle sleep. The angel stood watch, his radiance painting the stone walls with golden hues. Time passed, an eternity wrapped in silence. When the first light of dawn touched the horizon, the night's test was over. And though kings and kingdoms had tried to silence faith, heaven had written its own decree. The first rays of dawn touched the towers of Babylon, turning their golden tips into flames of light. The city began to stir, but within the palace, the king was already awake. He had never closed his eyes. Before the servants could speak, Darius threw on his robe and ran through the corridors, his steps echoing like thunder in the still morning air. Guards and nobles followed in confusion as he rushed down the long path that led to the lion's den. The dew still clung to the stones, and the air was cool and heavy with silence. When the king reached the sealed entrance, his breath trembled. The stone, marked with his own royal seal, glistened with the morning light. He called out, his voice breaking between fear and hope. "Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you serve continually, been able to deliver you from the lions?" For a moment, there was nothing, only the whisper of the wind over the sand. The nobles exchanged uneasy glances. The guards held their breath. Then, from within the depths of the pit, a calm voice rose, strong, clear, filled with peace. "O King, live forever. My God sent his angel and shut the lions' mouths. They have not hurt me, because I was found innocent before him, and before you, O King, I have done no wrong." The king fell to his knees, his eyes filling with tears of joy. "Praise be to the God of Daniel," he cried. "He lives! His God lives! Remove the stone!" he commanded. The guards rushed forward, breaking the royal seal. As the great slab rolled aside, light poured into the pit like a river of gold. There stood Daniel, untouched, his robe unmarked, his face calm and radiant in the glow. Around him, the lions lay still, blinking lazily in the sunlight, their once fierce eyes now serene. The angel's light had faded, but the peace of God remained. The guards helped Daniel out, their hands shaking in awe. The king embraced him, relief breaking his royal composure. "Daniel," he said softly, "your faith has judged the living from the dead. Truly, your God is above all gods." The nobles who had conspired against him stood frozen, their faces pale. The king's expression hardened as justice took hold. "Bring them forward," he ordered, his voice stern. "Let the wicked fall into the pit they prepared for the righteous." And as the sun rose high above the city, Babylon witnessed the power of the God who saves, not with armies nor with thrones, but with faith that does not bend. The roar of the stone rolling aside still echoed across the courtyard when the truth stood revealed. Daniel alive, untouched, shining with the peace of heaven. The nobles and governors who had plotted his death fell silent, their pride shattered like clay before a storm. Their eyes, once filled with arrogance, now flickered with fear. King Darius stood at the mouth of the pit, his royal robe dusted with the morning wind. He gazed down at Daniel, no chains, no wounds, no trace of fear, and in that moment, the king's heart turned fully toward the God of heaven. He lifted his voice, filled with awe and authority. "Daniel's God has saved him. The living God has proved his power before all Persia." Then his tone changed, from wonder to righteous fury. He turned toward the trembling conspirators, the same men whose deceit had nearly condemned an innocent soul. "Bring them," he commanded, his voice like thunder. "Bring those who schemed against my servant." Guards seized the nobles, dragging them forward as the people gathered to witness justice. The king's face was stern, his eyes burning with anger. "You sought to destroy the blameless," he said, "but the trap you built is now your own." At his signal, The guards removed the seal from the den once more. The darkness within seemed to breathe, the air trembling with the deep rumble of lions stirring awake. The conspirators cried out, but their pleas were drowned by the sound of growls rising from below. Before their feet even touched the floor of the pit, the beasts had leapt, the same lions that had lain still before Daniel now unleashed the fury of divine judgment. The echo of their roars rolled through the stone, chambers like the voice of justice itself. When it was over, silence returned, solemn, complete. The king turned away, his face pale but resolute. "The Lord of Daniel," he whispered, "is not like the gods of men. His judgment is pure." He called for the royal scribes and said, "Write this decree and send it through every province of the empire, to every tongue and nation under heaven." The scribes dipped their pens into golden ink, and the king spoke the words that would echo through eternity. "I, Darius, king of Persia, decree that in every dominion of my kingdom, men shall tremble and fear before the God of Daniel, for he is the living God, enduring forever. His kingdom shall not be destroyed, and his dominion shall have no end. He delivers and rescues. He works signs and wonders in heaven and on earth. He has delivered Daniel from the power of the lions." Messengers rode out from Babylon, carrying the scrolls east and west, north and south. And wherever the decree was read, hearts were stirred with awe, for the God of Daniel had silenced the mouths of beasts and humbled the pride of kings. The sun rose high above Babylon, gilding the palace walls with gold and fire. Messengers had already ridden out across the empire, carrying the king's decree to every nation and people, from the valleys of Egypt to the mountains of Media. Everywhere the message was the same: the God of Daniel is the living God. His kingdom shall never end. In the royal courtyard, Daniel stood beside King Darius. The crowds that once watched in silence now bowed in reverence, their voices lifted in praise. The king looked upon Daniel with deep respect. "You have shown me," he said softly, "that faith is stronger than fear, and your God is greater than the throne." Daniel bowed his head humbly. "My king, I am but a servant. The glory belongs to him who rescues, to him who reigns forever." For the rest of his days, Daniel remained in honor and peace. He walked the palace halls not with pride, but with quiet gratitude, his heart fixed on the one who had carried him through fire and lion alike. Even the nobles who once opposed him now sought his counsel, for the hand of God was clearly upon him. As years passed, the empire changed hands again, from the Persians to new kings yet to rise, but Daniel's faith never wavered. He lived to see kingdoms fall, idols crumble, and generations turn to dust, yet the name of his God endured. In his final days, the old prophet often returned to his window, the same one through which he had once prayed when death was near. He would look toward Jerusalem, his homeland far beyond the desert sands, and whisper with a smile, "The Lord has been my refuge all my life, and his mercy knows no end." Sometimes, young servants would ask him, "Master Daniel, were you not afraid in the den?" He would answer gently, his voice calm and sure, "When one walks with the Almighty, even lions must kneel." And so the years closed like a golden sunset over his life. Daniel, servant of God, lived out his days in honor, wisdom, and peace. A living testament to the truth that faith can silence fear, that trust can conquer death, and that no law of men can stand against the will of heaven. When the scrolls of his story were written, they bore a single eternal message. Faith is not proven in comfort, but in courage. And the God who saved Daniel still delivers today. As the palace faded into dusk and the stars emerged over the ancient plains, it was said that even the lions in the royal gardens lay quietly under the moonlight, their eyes reflecting the calm of a man who once faced death and found only peace.